Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar. I'm Alex Masycheff. I'm CEO at Intuillion. At Intuillion, we develop content automation solutions. We allow documentation teams to boost their productivity and make their product content scalable through the product content automation. And I've been in the industry since 1995, which makes it 28 years by now. And Fabrice, back to you.
Thanks. I'm Fabrice Lacroix. I am the founder and CEO of Free Topics. And at Free Topics, we do content delivery. So as you will see, we are very complementary to what Alex is doing. And our job is to make the content that you create and optimize in your CCMS to make it available the best way possible to your customers, to your users, optimizing findability, way to read, navigate, engage, and interact with the content itself. So to say, it's called CDP, Content Delivery Platform. So let's go. Let's deep dive into the subject.
Yeah, thank you, Fabrice. So let's do this together. And today we are going to talk about a very interesting case study that we did together with Fluid Topics. And today we're going to explain you how we help one of our customers build a self-service customer portal. So that is a customer based in Switzerland, and they are a producer of large industrial printers. Each printer is a large machine with a very complex configuration, with a very complex and expensive maintenance. And basically, when they sell their printers to customers, each customer gets their own custom configuration. So basically, there are no two printers that would be absolutely identical. So they have two big product lines, and as you can imagine, there are a lot of variations in these machines, and therefore a lot of variations in the product documentation. And when I'm talking about product documentation, I don't mean just the technical documentation, but all the content about the products, which includes technical documentation, of course, but it also includes marketing collateral, marketing literature, and it also includes sales documentation that help their sales agents, sale partners to sell. One of the major drivers that brought them and us to start thinking about a solution was an explosion of service costs. So the service costs literally went over the roof. And after some investigation, we realized that that was caused by a combination of two factors. One was related to the technical documentation itself, and the second factor was related to how their customer support was organized and provided to their customers. So the first factor, the one related to the technical documentation itself, was caused by the poor quality of the technical documentation. There were no standards. The documentation was full of all kinds of inconsistencies. Important knowledge was not collected from subject matter experts and not reflected in the documentation. And therefore, important knowledge was not transferred to the selling partners. So that was the first factor. The second factor was the way how that company organized their customer support. And that was quite interesting because initially their approach to customer service was building strong emotional relationship with every single customer. They were literally wanted to hug every single customer to build this kind of an emotional relationship. And that sounds good at first sight, but you need to understand that this approach might work pretty well when you have just a few customers. But as your customer base grows, and instead of having a dozen of customers, you're getting tens and then hundreds and then thousands and then tens of thousands of customers, this approach is not going to scale up. And this is exactly what's happened. At some point, they realized that they've got an oversized service team, a huge load of service tickets that they were not able to handle. And as a result, the quality of the customer support deteriorated, and they got a bunch of unhappy customers who could not get answers to the critical questions. So that was a combination of two factors, and I'd like you to keep them both in mind, because a solution for the both of them, not just for one, but to the both factors was the key in this project. And we're now going to discuss what exactly we've done. So here you can see, for example, how the number of support requests was increasing. Just at some point, they said, okay, we cannot handle this amount of support tickets, so we'll add more people. They've added more people, but then they began developing new products, delivering new customizations and configurations of their machines. So that increased the complexity of their products, which increased the number of support tickets as well. So they said, okay, so we're going to add more people and more people and more people. And at some point, the cost went over the roof and began impacting their profit margins.
Yeah, maybe at this stage, Alex, we could ask our audience, what are the challenges they have in their organization? Probably no. That would be interesting to see if what you describe here as being the challenges of Swiss-Ski Print are shared problems. So I think we have a poll here that I can ask this question to the audience. So which challenges are you experiencing in your own organization? So you can select multiple answers. So too much effort to create and update content, which obviously was one of the problem of, as you described, one of the problem of Swiss-Ski Print, difficulty to repurpose content for different usage, increase of translation costs, poor knowledge transfer, more downstream, increase of support and service costs. So do those challenges exist in your own org? So I'll give you a few seconds to reply.
And if you feel that your answer does not fit any of the suggested options, please feel free to type your answer in the chat. And generally, just let us know what you think about what we're discussing here. So, for example, if we're talking about something that really resonates with you, just share it with us. And you don't have to type a detailed comment. So just type an exclamation mark, and then we'll know that, okay, so we're talking about something that is resonating with you. Just type the exclamation mark in the chat.
Okay.
And of course, feel free to post the questions as well.
I think we're good. You have voted. So I closed this, and I think I can share the results. Yeah, I can. Oh my God, I'm good at this. So those are the results. Probably you can comment on that, Alex.
I'm not sure. I don't see the results here.
You don't see.
Yeah, so maybe I'm looking at the wrong place.
So obviously the first two main problems that you encounter, and it's 60% both, well, 59, let's say 60% are too much effort to create and update content, and then poor knowledge transfer to internal and external users. So it's basically creating, updating the content, delivering the content are the two main challenges that you have today. Then comes at like 45% difficulty to repurpose content for different usage, and increase of support and service costs. So it's interesting. And only at 20%, so very low, increase of translation costs. So obviously, translation cost is not something that is bothering you that much, a bit, but it's really what you describe here is very much related to the problems of Swiss-Ski Print. So too much effort to create and poor knowledge transfer. I think I have as well one other comment. We say we have multiple documentation portals. That is a corporate requirement. And so challenges determining where exactly customers are viewing our content the most. Okay, it's like spread it across multiple touch points. Okay, that can be one. So multiple touch points and dissemination. Okay, so thanks. I think now you're back on stage.
Yeah, thank you, Fabrice. That was very interesting, and I think one of the answers where our attendees said that they are facing a challenge with reproducing content is resonating with our use case as well, right? Because as you will see later on, one of the results that we were able to generate quite quickly was an ability to repurpose content for different goals, for different contexts, and for different types of content. But we'll go into more details a little bit later on. So basically, when we began working on that project, we've decided that we'll make the technical documentation a foundation for pretty much everything. And the technical documentation will be targeted not only at the operating and maintenance team, but also for other people who will be interested in this kind of content as well. And first of all, the technical documentation would become a basis, a foundation for creating training materials, and then for creating documentation required for the support agents. But clearly, the documentation as it was could not be used as such a foundation because, you know, garbage in, garbage out. And if you're trying to automate mess, all you get would be just an automated mess, nothing more. So that means that we had to rework the documentation to make it ready to serve as a foundation. That means that we were looking for a solution that would enable us to enforce structure and consistency across multiple content types that will also promote content customization and reuse because, like I said, each machine, each printer was customized for each customer, so which means that there are a lot of not only reuse, but also product-specific, product configuration or specific content variations. The customer obviously did not want to be locked into a specific vendor, but still he wanted to be able to publish to multiple formats and reduce translation costs. That was one of the critical points for them because they were translating their documentation from German to multiple languages. And pretty naturally, we made a decision about using DITA as a standard for their documentation because this is an open standard, because it enables a modular approach, and therefore it opens a lot of opportunities for content reuse and for content profiling. Of course, it enables us and their documentation team to single source the content to generate multiple outputs from the single source. At the time when we began doing the implementation, we were producing just PDFs, but that was going to change very soon, and you will see how a little bit later. And also, but that was something that came up a little bit later. DITA as a structured format of contents provided with semantic markup enabled also content automation. But before we move on, Fabrice, would you mind to run another poll for our audience? I think we would be interested to learn more about where our attendees are staying with DITA.
Done. So you have it on your screen. So quick poll, few questions as well. So if you're using data or let's say structured content, but preferably data, if you're there, why are you doing it? So what is the main driver for you or the main benefits that you see in using structured content and particularly data? It's more efficiency. So you can reuse content across different deliverables, lower translation costs, greater consistency and content quality, better multi-channel dynamic content delivery, or we are not using data yet, or let's say we're not even using structured content yet. So let us know.
So, and as in the previous poll, if your answer does not fit any of these options, please feel free to share it in the chat.
Okay, I think.
Or if you want to provide more details to your answer, also we'll be happy to see it.
Much of you have voted, so let me close the poll, so that we can see the results. So share results. Okay, what's the main benefit? So number one, 66% more, 66% of you who replied says more efficiency, reuse of content across different deliverables. So it's really the reason why you do it. Really, reuse is your main benefit and use case. Second benefit that you have, 63%, greater consistency and content quality. Good point. Then 40% that we drop at 40%. So better multi-channel dynamic content delivery. And then 30% of you are not using data yet. So I guess neither data nor structured authoring. So good, you're here to see the benefits. And only 24% of you see as a benefit lower translation costs. That's interesting. And probably I guess that I can understand why, due to the improvement of translation memories, meaning that even if you don't have granular content, retranslating now entire documents is not that costly because of better translation capabilities nowadays. So that's interesting to see that. Thank you. So back to the stage, Alex.
Yeah, thank you very much, Fabrice. Interesting results indeed. And in addition to, so I think that's all is resonating with you. But there was one more thing, just like I said, it came up a little bit later. We did not discuss it with a customer in the beginning of the implementation process. It just came up naturally as we began exploring what else we can do for them and how else data can serve their needs. And what we realized that data actually is not just about an ability to reuse content and to repurpose it, but also about automate at least some parts of the content process. Okay, so just let me give you a couple of examples what we've done for them. So for example, one thing that we were able to do, and that was because data as a structured format has content enriched with semantic markup that can be readable not only by humans, but also by machines, which means that we can come up with a computer algorithm that automatically processes content and do all kinds of amazing things. And one of these amazing things was an ability to dynamically change the representation of the content. And when I say representation, I don't mean converting data to PDF or HTML or something else. I'm talking about different ways to represent the same content. For example, think about maintenance procedures. And as you can imagine, maintenance procedures for this customer were very, very, very complex. They were lengthy, they were complex, and on top of that, they included multiple content variations because, as you remember, each machine was customized, was configured for every single customer. So there were a fair amount of content variations based on specific configurations. So we thought, okay, so, like they say, a picture is worth 1,000 words. So instead of making maintenance engineers to actually read this text, why not to give them an opportunity to get a picture that visually represents the same process? So what we've done, we've built an application on top of our data CCMS called Data 2 that took procedures, not necessarily maintenance, it can be any kind of procedure, and dynamically transformed it into a clickable flowchart. And this is an example of such a flowchart. Of course, the styles, the look and feel was completely configurable. It doesn't have to look this particular way. It's completely configurable. So this is just an example of what can be done automatically. So now the maintenance engineer has a choice. They may want to say, okay, I want to actually read the text, I'm fine with that. Or they just click a button, and in a matter of seconds, this textual procedure is automatically transformed to such a flowchart that represents the same information in a visual manner, which makes it more easier to understand and comprehend. And of course, because this image, this flowchart is generated dynamically, you don't need to redraw anything manually if there are any updates in the procedure, right? So you just rewrite your procedure, you click this button again, and this diagram is automatically regenerated. And so that was one thing that we've done for them. And another thing that is in discussions right now is an ability to automatically assemble the entire documentation set based on a structured input, such as a bill of materials or customer order or customer profile or any similar input. So, and again, this kind of animation was possible because it was data, because it was structured content that enables not only humans, but also machines to process the content. So, and this shows briefly the tool landscape. We've implemented our Data 2 data component content management system that allowed them to store all the content in a central repository. So all the technical writers, source engineers, all stakeholders were capable to access this content repository. And because different people in any organization has different roles and responsibilities and different working habits, this content repository actually exposes different faces to different people. So for example, technical writers are doing content production, managed translations, managed versions, and releases, search. They do all these actions on a daily basis. So they do need all these bells and whistles of component content management. So they are provided with one interface. But then there are developers and subject matter experts who occasionally contribute content. So they don't need all these bells and whistles of the component content management. That would be an overkill for them. So for this group of users, Data 2 provides a different face. It allows them to access the content repository with some basic document management capabilities from within the tools they work with, whether it's their development environment or MS Word or Excel or PowerPoint or Notepad, whatever. And out of this, they were generating PDFs. So we got the immediate results pretty quickly. And the first people who could benefit from the new way of working were, of course, the documentation team, because now they were able to work faster. All the content was in data, so which means they could create content faster, they could update content faster, their translation costs went down. Now, because the CCMS allowed them to assign semantic taxonomy, semantic metadata to different pieces of content, they were able to find what they need quickly. Now, the service and sales team were also among those people who benefited because now they were able to repurpose the same content for different goals, for different contexts. For example, they were able to create different document types and reuse content across document types. For the operating personnel, they began creating operating instructions, maintenance guides, tips and tricks, and so on. For the service teams, they created service documentation, repair instructions, spare parts catalogs, service bulletins, and so on. Now, for the sales teams, they were able to assemble brochures, white papers, competition analysis documents, success stories, and so on and so forth. So that was quite good. And that could be the end of this story. A good story, by the way. But there was one more component in this equation. And that component was called content consumers. Now, the documentation teams clearly could benefit. They were able to produce their documents faster. And what they were producing were PDFs. So which meant that content consumers were still getting the PDFs with all disadvantages of this. So first of all, yes, the documentation team, because they've got access to the CCMS, to the data CCMS, they were capable to find what they need quickly using faceted search, meta-database search, and so on and so forth. Right, because they've got access to the granular, to the componentized content. But in PDF, all these advantages got lost. In PDF, you don't have metadata on the level of individual topics, which means that finding a specific piece of content that your customer is interested in is quite problematic. So also, no one could guarantee that the PDF the customer is looking at is actually up to date. So probably not. And on top of this, when you generate a PDF and you deliver this PDF to a customer, you don't really know how your customers, how your content consumers are interacting with this content. You don't really know what they do read, what they don't read, what they care about, what they don't care about, and so on and so forth. You don't know if they can find what they need, or they're looking for something and they're getting a series of results, and so on and so forth. So this is something they cannot do if you deliver your content as static PDFs, even if your documentation team is benefiting from the component content. Okay, so again, remember, we were talking in the beginning about a combination of two factors, right, that caused this explosion of service costs. One factor was poor documentation. The second factor was the way how their customer support was organized. So the first factor related to the poor documentation has been successfully solved by now, okay? But still, there are quite a few challenges remained, and they mostly related to how the documentation was delivered to those people who were actually interested most in this content. Okay, and now, Fabrice, back to you. The stage is yours.
Thank you, Alex. So I think you made a good job at describing the problem. So what you have solved by helping SwissQPrint move to data, and what are the remaining challenges if you don't change the way you deliver content. So if you move to the next slide, you started describing the failure of static publishing, which is mostly take the content that you have, pre-generate whether PDFs or bunch of static HTML. And what is complex in that particular situation, if you move to the next slide again, is really what you've described here, which is the fact that one product exists at SwissQPrint. And I said SwissQPrint because that's obvious. That's that's the business case we're describing. But we see more and more of our customers being in that situation where product gets customized per client, and even at the same client, when they buy two products, the two are different. They are adapted to where they are installed and the work to be done. So that's exactly where we are at with SwissQprint. We have these variants and customization of the products, plus translation, versions of documents, and that multiplies over and over the number of PDFs that would need to be generated. So if you work and you say, okay, I have for each product, imagine you have 4 or 5 versions of it, 4 or 5 evolution of that product, and at each step, you have 10, 15, 20 customers that have acquired, 100 customers that have acquired that version of the product, and then that has been customized for them. So you can imagine how much PDFs you have to generate. And if you start fixing something in one topic, in one document, it means that you may have to regenerate thousands and thousands of PDFs. Now, and if you move to the next slide, you end up with all these bunch of PDFs that are generated. And if you just put that on a website, and that's the same for static HTML. I mean, it's just more pages instead of one document, but if you generate multiple HTML sets per customization, you end up, it's even worse at some point. So the problem is that if you put everything like that on your website, your doc website, doc portal, and you put a search on top of that, when a customer comes to the site and search for the problem to be solved, they may end up seeing 200 times the same PDF because it has been generated multiple times. So you can tell me, no, they won't, because you can put rights on that so that a customer is only able to see the PDF that applies to the variant, to the product instance that he has acquired, and then does not see the other PDFs, which is true. That would be one way of doing. But keep in mind that it's not that simple. SwissQprint has resellers that are installing and running those machines and maintaining those machines for tens and tens of customers and customers. So it means that for the resellers, anyway, the reseller will see for the same search, probably tens, hundreds of PDFs that look the same. There are just minor differences based on customization. So there was no easy way for them for solving this problem, and especially by staying in a PDF. And here, just to give you a sense of what we mean by those PDFs, each document is about 500 pages long, meaning that for a customer, for a user that is searching for a reply to solve an issue, they had to run a search, they see the PDFs, figure out which one is the PDF that applies to them, match their machine configuration, download the PDF, open the PDF, rerun the search inside the PDF, make sure as well that they have the latest version and the PDF that really applies to their configuration. So you see, that's a very tedious and long process. And there is this thing called the path of least resistance, meaning that if you make something complex, then people try to overcome it, like a physical principle, and meaning that if you have a good service team and it's complex to find info, what will people do? They will open a ticket and they reach out to the service team because you have a good service team that reply fast. So you move the burden of finding the results, the reply to a question from the user to the service team. And the better your service team, the least resistance there is to that, and the more tickets will be created by your customers when they don't find the info in a snap. And then you're trapped you're facing a sort of a conundrum, because either you say, we accept that, and you see your support cost skyrocketing, and then you put in danger your balance sheet, or if you want to avoid that, you have to create a sort of a pushback to make sure that your people spend more time searching for the info than reaching out to you. And in some way, you have to degrade the quality of your support, sort of to push your users back. How sad it is. So that's where they were. That's why at the beginning, Alex described these customers as facing a critical business issue, business problem of scalability, because either they were accepting to process more cases, more tickets, and spend a lot of money on that, or they would have to degrade the SLAs and the way they handle those tickets to push people back. So that's what kickstarted this project. And at some point, even though they put data in place, they realized that if they don't change the delivery, that makes no difference for the end user. Whether or not you use data at some point and you still generate PDFs or static HTML does not make a difference to your users. So this is where they decided to look at other ways of delivering information, and they discovered this, what we call dynamic content delivery on the next slide, which is basically platforms, and this is exactly what we do at Free Topics, which is software solutions that are dedicated to collecting, aggregating information from multiple sources, whether it's data or can be Word files, legacy content, wikis from subject matter experts. So it's about aggregating content, creating a unified knowledge hub, a sort of a knowledge database that contains all the info that people need, and then feed touch points, as many touch points as you need where people could find that information. In their case, and that's exactly what Free Topic does. Being able, we ingest any type of content. When it's data content, it's native data, can be markdown, open API documentation if you have API on your product, which I guess for SwissQprint, more and more those sort of products have software and are remotely configurable, so they have APIs as well. So all those sort of things become part of the tech doc. It's not just the manual, but it's a lot of things that come from different teams and internal services in your company that needs to be published in a central system, and that system is Free Topics. This is exactly what we do, and that was when we saw this opportunity of not only being able to publish not PDFs but granular content and pushing that into a platform that was keeping the granularity of the content alive, so that people could run searches that reply fine-grained content, targeted content, and not just entire documents, plus the capability to publish more content than just data content coming from other silos and tools that they have internally. They totally understood the fact that this was exactly what they needed to transform their customer support operations. So they called that, on the next slide, they say now we need to move from call for solution to information self-service, because if we find a platform, which is exactly what we do and what Free Topics provides, if we find a platform that provides amazing search capabilities, so that really by typing even few letters, people see the results of the questions that the prompt they have to solve. If people can in one click be in the document at the right position, check that in a matter of seconds, then you don't need to open a ticket, and that's where you make you solve the problem itself. So the first project they delivered was this. So the next slide is this self-service product documentation. The idea for them was not about just building yet another doc portal. You see, it was not pushed from. It was not sort of, okay, we have this doc portal which is not good, we don't like PDFs. Is really driven by the need to transform the field service and the customer support operations. So everything that they did was really analyzed and measured through that capability to transform the operation inside the company. So they were able to publish into Free Topics this unique delivery system that create this knowledge hub, aggregating service manuals, operating manuals, manufacturing documentation for the experts, service films, tips and tricks, flow charts for troubleshooting, as Alex has described. So even the flow charts that are generated from data become a certain type of live documents, and those live documents, those flow charts for troubleshooting are published into the system individually and rendered as flow chart, not as document. So they are able to add to the system pretty much everything, and they did really. They told us we have published into Free Topics almost everything we could, and that was making sense for any stakeholder that is involved in the process, from internal experts to support agents, to resellers, to the end customers, and even the end users for the instructions manuals. So that's really the great benefit they get from that. And what they have loved about this combination of Adidas CCMS and Free Topics CDP is the fact that the two solutions are really fully integrated, meaning that they can really publish, fix a document, add something, add a topic, create a new map, create a new doc, push a button, and in a matter of seconds after that, it's online. If they update something, it's online after a minute. It's always up to date. They call it daily publishing. For some of you that are already in this paradigm of CCMS and a CDP, looks like nothing, but believe me, we've seen customers before switching to Free Topics that were only able to release content once or twice a year, because the process of generating the PDFs, putting the PDFs somewhere, then having someone from IT taking the PDFs and putting that on a separate website, the process itself was so painful that they could, some companies can only run that process every few months. Here we are talking about people that are all correcting and adding information all day long and are able to publish on the fly, meaning that immediately the results of what you do in terms of content improvement becomes visible to anyone. And you can react to feedback as well, because then if you provide capabilities such as feedback for the customer, and if you move to the next slide, Alex, it's part of the engagement. I mean, a platform like Free Topics provide these capabilities for the users to rate and content, send feedback to the writing team online, reading that content, click, send feedback. I don't understand this. This is wrong. This is right. This is not well explained. Whatever it is, in a matter of seconds, they can do it. They click, and if then your text writing team handles those feedback, maybe not on the fly, but why not? Or at least every day or every 2 days, you look at them, you fix, and then you can publish immediately. Then people see that there is a communication channel that is open, and that gives them more willingness to contribute to that. Because if you send a feedback to someone and you don't have a reply, or even if it's fixed, but it takes 6 months for seeing the new versions of the document, I mean, your customers, your users will rapidly stop giving you feedback because they feel like it's lost somewhere in the dark. So that is part of the things that were really transformative to the way they were working, but not only giving their users the ability to search, find content faster, spotting targeted content and not documents, having this advanced readability and capabilities like working on laptop, tablets, smartphones because of the responsiveness of the portals. All the formats inside, they started publishing videos. We've talked about troubleshooting, workflows, and interactive diagrams. So all that was becoming available in a snap. So that was really a huge change for them. And the impact on the next slide was absolutely amazing, because that's really, they gave us the number. They called back and they say, you know what? The first month after we launched the portal, we saw a drop of 34% in service tickets. 34%, it's huge. And it was steady. I mean, it was not like people discovered that sort of the first days they like it and then they come back to normal. It's really, this had solved the problem, and back to this path of least resistance thing, that was becoming easier for people to search by themselves, find the info by themselves. That was faster than opening a ticket and waiting for the reply. And that was even easier to find a reply that just opened the ticket and described your problem. So back to that, so this immediate transformation and the immediate impact on the support team. So this is where we ended up after this, having this second phase of the project, which was the rollout of the support, the self-service product documentation. Next slide, Alex. So we are now in this position where we had solved for them not only internal problems for content creation efficiency with content reuse, optimizing content collection, as well letting people build on top of TechDoc as Alex described, which was the foundation of all content, creating support material and learning material. So, but as well, being able to train and upskill services and partners, and then treat customers as premium and make them more loyal and more satisfied. So that's really was transformative to the company. So that's how that's where we ended up at some point. So and then we started talking ROI with them. So Alex, can you move to the next slide and give us a sense of probably sort of some of the ROIs?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Fabrice, for the great presentation. I'd just like to summarize what we've said. So basically, it was very important to see it as a complex problem. So as you can understand by now, it wasn't just the problem of the documentation team that wanted to improve the efficiency, right? So the problem went well beyond that. So because the documentation was poorly organized and poorly written in the beginning, and the way it was poorly delivered, that affected the profit margin and the bottom line of the company, that did not allow them to scale up the business efficiently. So it was important to see it as a complex problem and find a solution not just for the documentation team and not just for the content delivery, but for the entire process of content creation, publishing, translation, and delivery. So like I said, yes, the first people who began to realize the benefits were the content writers, the technical writers, the documentation team. And they began realizing the benefits very quickly in the first months after DITA and DITA 2, DITA CMS was implemented, because they were able to reuse their content efficiently. They were able to track how and where each piece of content is reused. They were able to manage versions and releases. They did not spend any time now on formatting and reformatting their deliverables, and so on and so forth. Also, they succeeded to find a solution to reduce their translation cost, to repurpose content. But again, if that would be, it could be it could be the end of this success story if there were no content consumers. The problem is, all this is done for content consumers. And ironically, content consumers don't really care how and in which format the documentation is created, right? So from the content consumer perspective, it can be in Notepad or in MS Word, as long as they can reach their goals, as long as the content helps them reach their goals. And here's the point: the complex documentation written in MS Word or in Notepad, if you wish, doesn't allow them to do that. So part of the problem, it's part of the equation, and that's why we had to find a solution for the both parts of the equation, not only for the documentation team and not only for the content delivery, but for the both of them. The content has to be efficiently created and delivered. And like Fabrice said, once the content portal was deployed, the Swiss print could see the benefits right away, and the number of support tickets reduced by 35%, 34% in the first months. And as a result, their maintenance became faster. The service engineers got bigger autonomy and efficiency. And what is also very important, that allowed their service team, nobody laid them off, right? So they were not sent home, but they were able to focus on more important tasks because the first tier support was automated. And now simple questions were not immediately sent to the customer support. A lot of questions, a lot of issues were resolved by the customers by themselves because they were able to find answers on their questions by themselves without bothering the support team and without having to open any new tickets. And that meant that now the support team could focus on really important, really complex tasks and put their efforts out there and keep the customers happy. And Fabrice, do you want to summarize that one?
I think that's in one phrase, and then we'll switch to the questions. We have few already. I think really what you have to keep in mind is that the project was not a project that was focusing on making tech writers' life easier. It was really a project that was driven to solve a key business scalability issue at the company level. And because they were able to deliver the result pretty fast, not only benefiting, as Alex described, to internal teams, but immediately as well to customer support and increasing customer satisfaction, which are amazing benefits. But again, that was unleashing business scalability to Swissquote because now they knew that they could increase their sales by still keeping control of all the associated costs and making sure that more customers could still resonate with customer loyalty, not disappointing their customers by not being able to keep on with the growth of the company. And that was absolutely an amazing product for that, because so now we can grow, sky is the limit for them, and we can be, sky is the limit, keeping customer satisfaction at the level we want it to be. So that's the story we had with Qprint. I think we're done. Here we can start with a few questions. I have a first one, from Mike. Good to see you. You have multiple ones. I start with this one, which is probably a bit easier. How do you federate knowledge center articles stored in support platforms such as Salesforce with the content delivery by CDP and for both support agents and customers? So good question. So for us, being Fluid Topics, a knowledge center that exists somewhere in Salesforce or whatever platform you have where support agents start creating their own content is like any other source. We are able to ingest that content, read that content into Fluid Topics, and make it look like the rest of the content. So that's usually part of the content we have. It's not only data content coming from the tech doc, but we are used to, and we have the connectors for reading content. We're reading those knowledge centers in Salesforce, for example, and indexing that content as well. So at least that makes that enriches the knowledge hub with not only regular tech doc, but as well those whatever it is, troubleshooting tips, whatever that are created by support agents. Now the question is, what do you do with that? Well, obviously that becomes part of the replies, part of the material that is accessible to the users when they search in the self-service center. But you can still feed that back into your Salesforce as well. So we have this two-way connection with a platform like Salesforce, right? We can, in one way, read the content that already exists inside these platforms, whether it is knowledge-based articles that have been created, but as well past support tickets. We can mine those tickets, mine the cases, past cases, because there is a lot of info there, anonymize that if necessary. And the other way around, let Salesforce find info inside the Knowledge Hub so that you don't have to force load your content into Salesforce. I mean, can you imagine what it would be loading such content from Swissquote with all the variants in a platform like Salesforce? That would not be possible at all. I mean, it's not meant for that. Okay, what is the time scale on that graph, assuming it's monthly data? What is the time scale on the graph? I think, yeah, it was about weekly or monthly, probably. I guess so, yeah. That was fast. I mean, getting the results and the outcome and the benefits were really, and that's quote from Swissquote, the months, within a month. It's really after a few days, few weeks, they get the result. So it's not long-term, it's really short-term benefits. Question for you, Alex. Someone's trying to get a bit of your IP and your skills. How do you get, how were those workflows built and automated? That is great. Yes, that is great. I love the idea. And I can just say yes. I mean, getting the idea of taking something like a task or whatever you have and transform that into an interactive workflow that is republished as a workflow to free topics. Love the idea. So do you want to tell your secret recipe?
Well, that's basically Data 2 is built in a way that allows us or third-party developers or customers themselves build their own applications that extend the core functionality of Data 2. And one of these things allows them to add some additional processing. And this is what we've done. So basically, we've built an application that processes data content, and because data is all about semantic markup, we know exactly the meaning of each element. We know that this is a step, and here we know that this is a conditional step, and this is the result of the step. And because we know the meaning, we know how else it should be represented. So then we've built a solution that draws this rectangles and circles and arrows based on the semantics of the data content, right? And another nice thing about it is that you don't have to manually redraw this flowcharts, for example, when a new product is rolled out, right? And now you need to profile your content, right? You profile a content using standard data profiling attributes like product, the platform, whatever, and then the application just knows that now, depending on the output that you want to generate, right, it should ignore some processes in this fork and generate others.
Excellent, love that. Question. Someone's wondering, try to do it in 15 seconds because we are at the top of the hour. Did the writer have previous knowledge of data, and how did they get trained? How complex or not, easy or not, painful or not, was it to make them move from the legacy system into data?
Well, the documentation manager did have a previous knowledge of data. So I know that he used data at his previous place of work. So he came with some knowledge and with some experience. And then he began teaching his fellows co-workers how to work with data. And when we began working with them, they were using unstructured FrameMaker. So some conversion from unstructured FrameMaker to data was also involved.
Okay, that was part of the project. Okay, so it looks like it was not that difficult. Question, how do you differentiate, I guess it's for me, how do you differentiate and manage access to the content that is available to the customers and to the partners? Do all customers have access to the same content? Answer is no. And again, it's not just, as I said earlier, it's not that simple, because it's not just like one customer, yes, has access only to the generic documentation and the documentation that is specific to its piece of hardware. So sometimes they can see two documents, one is like generic and then one is specific. And again, when there are resellers or technicians that are in charge of multiple working at different facilities, they see more content. That's why it becomes complex. How it is handled, basically on writes, it's connected to a directory. So people sign in, and based on once they authenticate, the backend system of SwissQprint knows it's connected to the CRM, and we know what are the devices that people have acquired, what is the configuration of these machines, and then this is mapped into the user profile, and based on that and the user rights, they see more or less content. So it's very interesting because there is a backend single sign-on system that itself, and we are even able to get info from the CRM where the configuration of the machines are described for each customer, and that automatically creates the profile and the credential of the users. I have a interesting question from a technical one from Mike again, and maybe we'll finish on this one unless there's another one, but I like this one. Mike says, leading edge companies are now creating knowledge graphs based on data to drive many new and really advanced dynamic and personalized content retrieval and delivery from big content. When will the CCMS and the CDPs begin to interface with taxonomies, ontologies, and graph database? That's a good question. I mean, technically, we already do. We have this, it's a bit prototype internally. We haven't released it yet, but we have introduced into free topics the capability to publish maps into free topics. But the map itself is not a list of topics. The map is a query to a system. So instead of getting the map of a document provided to free topics, you can imagine like you have the reference documents that are applicable to anyone that are listing everything and all the topics regarding a subject for all the variants and everything. So it's a long document that exactly the document you don't want to give to anyone, but it's more like the map that references all the topics that are on specific machine. You publish that to free topics, and in fact, people never open that document because it's too wide, it's too big, it contains everything. It's like if you have this version, do this. If you have that version, do that. You wouldn't do, you see what I mean? It's like this sort of document. Well, the condition is at the topic level, so it's not written, but that's what it means. And though you're able to publish that, and as well publish maps, virtual maps, called that VMAP, virtual maps, that are in fact embedding just a query. So what's inside the map itself is, imagine a data map where you open it inside as a query, and the query, when someone clicks on that document to open the document, in fact, it runs the query, and the result of the query is the map itself. You see what I mean? But the map is not preloaded into free topics. The map is generated on the fly by querying an external system like this sort of knowledge graph database. So thanks for the question, Mike. It's on its way. We already have seen that. So I guess now the way it articulates for us, it's pretty easy to make that work. And now the way it articulates with CCMS may be more complex. And I guess the work of the CCMS is not the graph database. So typically you start having the CCMS, which is building more the standard documents or these full documents. Then you have this knowledge graph somewhere, and then you have the CDP. And in fact, we start being able not only to read maps from the CDP that we receive from the CMS, but as well getting maps that are generated on the fly by querying external graph system. So yeah, we have that as well. Well, it's very advanced. I mean, yeah, I know you, Mike. I know who you are. I know you are very advanced into that, and you said that's very advanced companies. Not many do that. The complexity of building those graphs database and making sure that they are consistent is quite still not every people do that. We work with two or three customers on the subject, but we don't see.
Yeah, same applies to us. It's also something that we are working on right now, and we work with ontologists quite extensively. And one way to represent ontologists is via knowledge graphs, which is an amazing topic, and I think it deserves just a separate webinar.
Yeah, we'll do a webinar on this. Two more questions, last ones. Did I hear correctly that you have a working integration between the self-service portal and SF Knowledge? Yes, we can. Yes, I confirm we can index knowledge from Salesforce. That's easy. There's an API to read the content itself, so nothing difficult here. And then last question from Mike. Have you considered integrating a deduplication engine such as those offered by DCL and Stylo to identify and assist authors with reuse inside the CCMS itself while authoring in the authoring tool? I guess it's for you, Alex. Well, how do you deal basically? How do you deal with content duplication and make sure that people could avoid duplicating? Do you have something that, or do you interface with those sort of algorithms that identify seemingly duplicated content so that then people can maybe merge that and just put some conditions inside the content to maintain one piece only?
Yeah, so this is also something that under discussions, and we are having discussions with some of our technology partners that can help us find duplicative content. Out of the box, what you can do, you can use metadata. So when you store content in the two, all the content is tagged with metadata. It can be done manually. It can be also done automatically. And then you can see if there are more than one piece of content that have the same metadata. And if yes, then it might be an indication that your content is duplicative.
Okay, thanks. Okay, I think we have, unless I missed one, I think we have answered all the questions that we had so far. It's already 9 minutes past the hour, so I think that's the end of it. Thank you very much. Really appreciate you took time to come and attend this presentation. Trish, something to say?
Just wanted to make sure to remind everyone that this webinar has been recorded and that we, well, or rather you will send out the links to the attendees, and it will always be posted on our CIDM website under past webinars.
Perfect.
Thank you very much.
Great webinar, guys.
Thank you, Alex. That was a pleasure.
Thank you, Trish. Thank you, Fabrice. Thanks, everyone.
Have a good day. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Take care.